Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Geek Garage Podcast. I'm your host, David Dassall. With me today is my good friend, Jared Rigsby.
Hello. Nice to be here.
How are you?
Oh, pretty fantastic, man.
Cool.
Excited to talk about movies.
Yeah.
Geeky movies.
If, first of all, have to get this out of the way. I am so sorry it has been so long since we did our last episode. I had been in school this past year, and so I was pretty busy. I couldn't do episodes on a pretty regular basis, and when we did the episode on Avengers Infinity War, I was kind of finishing up school, and I just got my new job a couple weeks ago. So I am now finally to the point where chaos doesn't rule my life 100%.
Yeah, David's next level geek now. He's a much more intense coder.
Yes,
than he once was.
I graduated in more ways than one. I not only have a certificate.
Oh, that's not what they give you?
Yes, they gave me a certificate in software development. Not only did I graduate from the school, literally, but I graduated from doing email to actual software programming.
Yeah, that's a big jump.
Yeah.
That's a big jump.
It really is. But that's not why you chose to listen to this episode.
No.
But yeah, I just wanted to give you you listeners an understanding and a look into why it's been so long since the last episode and why it's kind of been choppy this past 12 months or so. But if you've been keeping up with my social media posts, this will be old news, so I'll just kind of reiterate. We're gonna do a couple new things. Like I said, we're gonna try and do more episodes on a more frequent basis. We're also going to have a new quote unquote channel for our podcast. It's going to be called The Horror Circus, not the Horror Circus,
The Horror Circus,
but the Horror Circus, as in the genre of film.
Yeah,
horror,
scary movies.
Yes, and if you listened or are familiar with the scary movie episodes that we did last October, my good friend Shauna Hoyt is going to be my reoccurring co-host for that segment. So we're going to wrap that in. Our original idea was to do that as a separate entity from Geek Garage, but through certain things and logistical reasons, we decided to kind of wrap it into this episode. This podcast, and it'll just kind of be a different segment from our regular show, and it'll be strictly focused on horror and sci-fi films, and we'll probably get into some TV shows and other stuff like the X-Files and other things that aren't necessarily just movies.
Yeah.
But
more mediums.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, on to our main attraction. Basically, today is going to be, we'll be talking about all the instances where the sequel of a movie was better. And
the children that scream while
yes,
the sequels.
Right.
Yeah. Well, basically, it's like what goes into these movies that makes the first one maybe didn't quite hit. Maybe it was good. And then the sequel came around, and people responded much better, to the sequel, and it was just like a better movie.
Yeah,
which isn't always the case, obviously.
Yeah, this was one of the episodes. I had this idea a long time ago. It's been a backlogged episode for quite some time now. I want to say about 6 months or so, and I just like I said, I've been busy. I haven't had the time to flesh it out. But when I initially thought of it, I just thought it would make a good episode. I really hadn't thought about any good talking points. But the more I thought about it, and especially bringing you in as my guest for it, we've been able to put our heads together and really come up with some cool talking points and things to discuss, and some really great examples where the sequel is better. And we want to make a couple, I guess, disclaimers right off the bat. Let's see. I have them written down here because I'm very professional.
Disclaimers.
So yeah, if when we say sequel, we are obviously talking about the second movie. If there's only two in the franchise, but in addition to that, if there's more than two or if there's reboots, we are also taking into consideration any movie that was after the first one.
Yeah, yeah. Sequential order sequels,
Yes.
not necessarily just two.
Right, yeah. So, in like the Harry Potter franchise, which we'll touch on in a little bit,
Right.
it in my opinion, it didn't start, kind of really getting up and going until, a couple movies into it. And there's definitely more than one case of that in cinematic history.
Yeah.
So we wanted to kind of include that into this whole thing.
Yeah, especially with such massive movie universes like, Marvel, Harry Potter. Like, the joke used to be like the Rocky movies. They never quit making Rocky movies, but all these other like geekier style movies have just blown that out of the water, the past 10 years or so. So yeah, the sequels can go on, and then you see something way further down the line. You're like, wow, that just completely blew the rest of them away.
Yeah, for sure. We, like I said, we definitely have some interesting talking points. So we are just going to jump right into it with part one. We're actually going to split this into two parts. So yeah, we are going to jump in with part one. We kind of have the movies grouped into similar genres. So yeah, let's see. So
Science fiction.
yeah, science fiction.
First.
Yeah, we have. There's a couple of schools of thought and scenarios when it comes to the sequels and what makes them better than the original. There's the classic. Yeah, the first one was crap, and then the second one, oh yeah, it was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah,
it was
they
better.
fixed it essentially.
Yeah, and then there's this scenario where you're like, oh yeah, the first one was good, but the second one, like it took the original ideas of the first one and just expanded on it and made everything better. And then there's there's a bunch of other kind of like different scenarios you could think of for different franchises, but those are kind of two of pretty popular ones that when I was doing my research or when we were doing our research, we feel like those two kind of hit the gamut of all the movies that we
Yeah, right. And it's like most people will be familiar, like some of these like sequels, you'll be like, oh yeah, duh, that's everyone knows that sequel is better than some of them.
Right.
It might be a little more down the line, cut down the middle as far as how your audience responds.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I'll probably throw in on this first one, we wanted to talk about Empire Strikes Back.
Yep, the Empire Strikes Back. We're going to start off with a bang.
With a bang.
Yeah.
I think most people kind of consider Empire better than A New Hope.
I think everyone considers it, and if you don't, then you're wrong.
You're wrong. But I think the real divisive part is Return of the Jedi versus Empire.
Yeah, that whole Clerks.
Now you're talking dirty.
Scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which we might have different opinions on that. But I think to start off, Empire being better than A New Hope.
Yeah, that's a great example of the original being good, and then the sequel taking all of the things that made the first one good and expanding on it and just making it so much better. And honestly, we could just do this whole episode on Empire Strikes Back.
Probably.
But for the sake of brevity and being able to talk about the other movies that are available to us, we are going to just hit the fine points.
Yeah.
Jared, what in your opinion, what's one of the big things for you that makes Empire so much better than the original?
So I think what's cool about the original trilogy of Star Wars is that it is like each of the movies is almost like an act in a bigger story.
Yeah.
Right. So you had the first act, kind of, it's like an introductory act.
Mm-hmm.
We meet the hero, like Luke Skywalker, the poor orphan that becomes the hero of the whole story. Has a mystic mentor, and has to get saucy with a big empire that's tyrannical and trying to destroy things. What was interesting, I think, about Empire and what I think blew people away was it was the second act, which generally sets up a darker tone.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're looking at like a story overall, you have sections of the story where you need some kind of tension or drama to keep the reader or the watcher engaged and like wondering what's going to happen next. And I think Empire is probably one of the best examples
for sure.
of that. In multiple ways.
Yeah, there was there's a lot that goes into this movie as far as things that you can just dissect and go into. One of the things that I kind of wrote down in my notes that attributes to it being better than the original was like the whole thing with Han Solo. Like, from what I can remember, it wasn't set in stone at the time of filming this movie that he was going to be in the third one. And so they kind of wrote it in a way where he could possibly be gone forever.
They kind of set him in stone instead.
Oh,
I like that.
I usually I make those punny jokes purposefully, but I didn't realize that.
I didn't catch that one. I was just looking for like an entrance on that.
Yeah.
It was just too perfect.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
But yeah, I actually didn't know that they were considering not having Han, or were they considering killing him off?
So I don't want to say something like, yes, this is the way it was,
right?
Because I don't want fans to yell at me and be like, "Oh, you quoted that wrong." I want to say it was something along the lines of that. Like, they weren't sure if he was going to sign on for Jedi, or if they decided that they were going to actually kill him off or leave him frozen in carbonite.
Yeah.
There was some uncertainty as to his involvement in the third one. I know that for sure. So that's why they chose to write certain things the way that they did in Empire, which kind of furthers the point of what you were saying about the dark turn that Empire took, was that there's this positivity to the first one. They blew up the friggin' Death Star.
Right. It's the happy ending.
And like that movie, it could have just survived on its own if it wanted to.
Yeah.
But the second one came in and it's like, no, there's a lot more to this franchise.
Yeah. And I think a lot of other franchises usually drop the ball if they have a standalone movie and then they make a sequel after that, without having kind of like, this could be standalone, but there's actually a lot more we could really flesh out.
Yeah.
And I think Star Wars had that, like, oh yeah, I had this in mind. Like, George Lucas was like, this is going to get dark, and then you're going to really want to see that third one.
For sure.
They kind of get hopeful.
Yeah, another thing, kind of on a similar note, that Empire did was expand on the physical universe that this whole franchise takes place in, because in the first one, we're only introduced to a few select places. We got Tatooine, we got the Death Star, we got
like the introduction to a lightsaber,
right?
Stuff like that.
Yeah. Everything that we will see more of in the franchise is very minimal in this. Like, I think there was an honest trailer for the episode 7.
Yeah,
and you see like comparison lightsaber fights to from that movie to like the first one, where you just see Obi-Wan facing off against Darth Vader, and it's the most boring lightsaber fight, and you're just like, well, I guess that was a thing.
I think I've actually read about why that was such an awkward fight. I think, first of all, they used like metal, like the lightsaber prop they were using were actually like metal props.
Okay, so it was like really heavy,
as opposed to like when you have like the prequels coming up where they're like spinning it and all that really cool sword play. It was more of like a plastic prop.
Okay,
it was a little bit less dangerous, obviously to hold. And the second thing was I think George Lucas's influence of Japanese culture, which is a really interesting, I think, element of Star Wars that I think a lot of people miss. It was highly inspired by the Seven Samurai, I believe.
Okay.
And thus is why Darth Vader looks like he's wearing a kabuto helmet, like a samurai. Like his whole robotic costume is kind of built around a samurai.
Yeah,
So I
that's
think
interesting.
the sword play they were kind of going for is more of like a traditional kinpo
Okay.
style, and obviously you have like an older actor, what's his name that played
Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
So like the combinations of I think these things make for
Yeah.
like, yeah, we kind of want to use a lightsaber battle. We kind of need to kill Obi-Wan off.
Right.
And then we'll figure it out later when we have some, younger stuntmen to swing those metal bars around.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you get that with Empire. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, we're going to do a Luke Skywalker,
Okay.
Darth Vader
Yeah.
throwdown,
Quick side note, speaking of stuntmen, did you see that video? I think it was something that Disney's working on, but it is a robotic stunt person, and he was like doing fucking like
Yes.
trapeze work, like just insane stuff, and it looked so lifelike.
Yeah, terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, on one level, I'm like, that's awesome because it could, potentially come in and do some stunt work for actual actors.
Yeah.
But it's also like, oh my god, they are actually going to rise up and kill us all.
yeah.
Like they are. We are. The machines will rise. This is Terminator.
There it is. It's
we
happening.
learn nothing from the movies that we make. just when people are like, we're gonna fuck
man.
around with chicken DNA and make like
Make a
actual
dinosaur.
dinosaurs. Yeah, like what are you doing? Like we literally have like 6 movies about how this is a terrible idea.
Gonna release velociraptors back into the wild just
Right.
to see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, nothing could go wrong, really.
That's good fun.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that with Empire, and like I said, we don't want to spend a whole lot more time on this, so we'll kind of quickly talk about a few more things. There's a lot more battle stuff. There's a lot more lightsaber battles. The battle between Luke and
and Vader.
And
Vader.
Vader.
Like Luke loses a hand.
Right.
He
And
learns that
then the
Vader's
big
his
reveal,
father.
right.
Is huge, all within that fight scene, and then the battle sequence. Right.
Yeah.
You're talking about like Hoth, like opening it up with a huge,
Right. Just
the
like
action level of everything, but with an interesting story level. I think when you have those two combined, I think that's some of the best movies.
Yeah.
That come out of that, the best received.
Yeah, I just realized that the Last Jedi. I know it's kind of a polarizing movie, but that kind of mimicked the idea of the opening of Empire as well. We have the episode 7 that it was. I don't want to say it was a complete
repackaging of A New Hope.
Right. But it did bear a lot of resemblances. I was totally cool with that because we had to get Star Wars fans back on board with like more movies and not be like, yeah, we're making new ones and they're all going to be crap. So we had to, instill that confidence that we could, make more and they could, be good again. But with the Last Jedi, it also opened up like right in the middle of all that action, and that like heart racing sequence of her like kicking the pole to try and get the button thing down to her so she could push it.
Yeah, the bomber.
So she could release all the bombs into the what's that?
That
it's
battle.
It's not
ship.
a Star Destroyer. It's something of the
some
like.
other kind of intense.
Right.
Destroyer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something
they needed to destroy.
And lives. Yeah. So yeah, there's that. And then let's see. We talked about the impending doom of Han Solo and how we didn't know.
Yeah, like in the twist, like I think the dark-sided kind of twist of the movie. You have the reveal of Darth Vader as Luke's father. You have the betrayal of Han Solo. From it just left me.
Lando.
Yeah, I forget Lando Calrissian.
Yeah.
So the whole
45.
the whole betrayal of that is that you don't see that coming because
Right.
he's a likable character and
Yeah.
they're like old friends or old like he's just like Han.
Right.
And like,
nope. He's getting ready to fuck you over again.
Oh no.
Yeah. Always. They're always looking out for number one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they set up Return of the Jedi, which in my opinion, I think it was the best of the original trilogy.
You think so?
It might be because, I mean, it's probably nostalgia, right?
Okay.
It's just like whatever I liked as a kid. You know, I'm like, oh, I want to see the one with the green lightsaber. Where that whole, the whole opening scene of Luke saving Han from
the fucking
why does it leave me? Why does a movie I love for so long?
the lemur, not lemur,
Jabba the Hutt, yeah, the Hutts from the Hutts on Tatooine.
Yeah.
That whole rescue scene there's something very like I guess romantic about it, like not like smoochy Luke loves Han romantic, but like
I'm coming to get you, bro, Namath.
Yeah, the heroics of it, where in just being in that desert landscape with the monster and the pit, and then the execution scene, and then this like really elaborate lightsaber rescue scene, I think always stuck out to me.
Yeah, I mean, since then, like, there's been a lot of talk, and there's a lot of videos out there and a lot of information trying to talk about how. Return of the Jedi isn't that great of a movie, or it doesn't hold up as well as we thought, but I still feel like it's a great movie despite its faults, and I feel like it doesn't get as much credit nowadays.
I feel like I wouldn't make so much as like an intellectual like argument that it's better, but like just the kid in me liked the adventure scenes that are just strewn throughout that one.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's move on to the next one. We got Terminator 2.
Speaking of killer robots.
Yeah. Speaking of things that are going to rise up and kill us and be self-aware and be like, "Hello, Dave. Hello. I've come to end your life." Oh, thank you. I just ran out of coffee.
Love me and fear me.
Right.
And then worship me.
Oh, God.
I am your mecha god.
When we were both doing research as far as movies that were kind of objectively viewed as better than the original, this hit a lot of lists that I saw, and it's there's no argument against it. Like,
I feel like this is the go-to movie for sequel was better.
It's not a mistake that it's the second movie that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are people out there. I have talked to several people that feel like Terminator 1, the original, was the better movie. Not a whole lot of people. I've ran into maybe
it was definitely good.
Yeah, it was.
There's no
great.
doubt that the first Terminator.
Yeah, it was a great movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, in my opinion, there's just no mistaking the fact that Terminator 2 ups the ante in every aspect. Like the villain, T-1000 is just fucking terrifying for not being a horror movie. I mean, it is a sci-fi movie.
Well, the first one had a lot of like horror vibes. Yeah. There's a robot like hunting this woman down, and like he's like unstoppable. All you can do really is run from him.
Right.
So I think that really kind of makes it fall easily into horror.
Yeah.
And the second one had those aspects. It's probably why it kept such like a high, intensity, but it was more, I think, action.
Yeah, it's and we do have Alien and Aliens on this list. And we can we'll get to those here in a little bit, but it's almost in the same aspect where the first one, like an Alien, it was it's much more like widely accepted that the first one was more horror based.
Yeah.
And then the second one was more like action sci-fi.
Yeah, the Space Marines. Coming to blow up aliens.
Right, for sure.
It was great.
Yeah. And then it's kind of the same thing in Terminator 2, where you have the first one, like you said, definitely had a lot of horror elements, and the second one does too.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's motorcycle chases. There's lots and lots of running.
That really cool thing he does with the shotgun when he's reloading the shotgun and just like
So
flips
good.
it on the motorcycle.
Like just thinking about it now, like gives me goosebumps. I'm like, yes, like I want to ride a motorcycle and shoot a shotgun at the same time.
Yeah.
Not like I'm a psycho or anything. It just seems like a fun thing to do.
And especially on like the science fiction angle. Like I think historically, science fiction has always been a very I want to say like philosophical genre. It's a bunch of what ifs and like how like technology can change and like change our place in the universe and change how we view ourselves. And I think Terminator, the first one, where you had like this idea that AI would go too far and then want to exterminate us and then find time travel. And then you have all these weird time loop, stuff in it. And you're like, oh, wow. And then it's like, at the same time, it's visceral. It's trippy in your head to imagine a robot coming back in time to kill the mother of a human who's going to destroy the robots. So it's like this like loop thing, which is like, whoa. But at the same time, it's a movie about a woman running for her life from a robot that just wants to kill her. It's all he wants to do. Yeah. With some Joe Schmo soldier coming back to try and protect her. But he's like, I don't have any laser guns. I'm not sure if I can totally protect you.
Yeah. Speaking of Linda Hamilton as a fucking badass.
Yeah.
The stark difference between where seeing her in the first one.
Oh yeah.
And you can kind of tell like she's as she drives off in that, I think it was a Jeep or it doesn't matter.
Right, with the dog.
Where she drives off at the very end of the first one, you can kind of tell that she's going to kind of shed her old form and become this new badass.
Yeah, character development.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then the second one opens up with her like doing overhand pull-ups in a fucking mental institution. You're like, well, that escalated quickly.
She got there.
But like you can tell that she's just like constantly preparing herself for the moment she knows is coming, where the machines are going to come back for her. And she's accepted this, but what's interesting to me is that when the time comes, she still turns out to be greatly terrified, because that scene where Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, he comes off the elevator with her son. And you see, it's the scene where she's trying to escape. Yeah. And as she's trying to get on the elevator, they're coming off, and she doesn't know yet that he's come back as a good guy this time.
That's another kind of weird character development.
Oh yeah, that was super weird. Like I actually saw Judgment Day first, and then I saw the original.
Right. You're like, he's not a bad guy. This is weird.
Yeah, so that was super confusing. Like I had to like double check multiple sources, making sure I was watching the right movie.
Yeah, I want to say I had that issue too as a kid. Like, oh, okay, this is the movie where he's a bad guy.
Right.
But it's like Arnold's not supposed to be a bad guy.
Yeah.
It's Arnold.
Right. Yeah. That was, I think that was one of the things that I had a hard time getting past with the first one. And that's my own fault. It's because I watched the second one first. Right. Was like, I had a hard time seeing, him as a bad guy now. I was like, I don't want him to be a bad guy. I only know him as the good guy.
The whole element, I think, of making, that like him a good guy in the second movie, I think, was huge. I think it did a lot for the movie. It did a lot for like especially since he was bad in the first movie, and you see him come back as a good guy fighting a more advanced robot. It almost has this like Logan-esque, like an old gunslinger coming to like try and save a family from some impending doom. But he's kind of worn out and busted. He's not like the newest model. Yeah. But he's still like heroic. You still like really appreciate him for like being there and being what he is. Yeah. And then the whole aspect of his relationship with the kid. And it's like you had this kid who's kind of a problem child. It's like you're like the savior of the world. It's kind of this rotten kid that hangs out with like bad kids. But he kind of has to. He kind of to like learn how to survive. It becomes a part of his character. Right. But then you have this relationship. It's like can AI be a role model for a kid? And you're like, oh, he can, because I believe it. Yeah. Like I want a Terminator to help me, hang out with me and give me high fives and do all the things.
Right. Tell me he's gonna be back, and then he actually comes back. Like, unlike his real dad.
Yeah. Oh, burn. Robo Dad.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other like layer of philosophical thought on the genre as a whole. It's like, can we as the audience like relate to an AI robot as the hero? And it's essentially what he was, in that he was, the self-sacrificing hero.
Right. You know what I'm a robot. You know what I cannot relate to is any of the other movies that came after this one.
Oh no.
The one with Christian Bale, Terminator, I think that was Salvation.
Yeah.
That one I liked because it just had a different feel to it. And plus it had him and Sam Worthington and a few other actors and actresses that I really liked. And I thought the plot was decent. But really everything else is just kind of big, dumb fun. Yeah. Aside from Genesis, big, that was... did you see Genesis?
Yeah, I did. I just, it was kind of like 3. It was kind of like Terminator 3 in my opinion. Yeah,
that in my opinion, that's really the only one that I watched, and I was like, I really don't like this. Like, I hung on to the very end in hopes that something would happen where I'd be like, okay, like there was some redeeming moments and some good moments, and it just turned out like, and it was kind of upsetting to me because it had what's her name, Khaleesi from Game of Thrones.
I forgot her name too.
Emilia Clarke.
Yes. Yes.
That was kind of upsetting that she could not save it.
Yeah, you're really hoping for it. I don't know. It's kind of like this whole fad of everything being visual and being visually centered, and then they kind of forget the story. Yeah, and that's kind of what.
I think drops the ball. Yeah, I think a lot of studios try and rely on that a lot nowadays. Is getting like big name actors into the movie. Not necessarily in hopes that it will do very well and it'll make get the numbers at the box office that they're hoping for. They're more like, yes, this is the key to getting those numbers that we need is getting those big names out there. We don't need to focus on the story or the plot or whether we can further this franchise beyond this point.
Right. We'll make it in computers.
Right. We'll just get all the big name actors and people will just automatically come see it. And for the most part, they're right.
It'll make its money in China, and we're like, oh, whatever.
Right? Yeah, we're big in China. Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's all I had for Terminator. Do you have any other thoughts on Terminator 2: Judgment Day?
Nah, just the expansion. Just expanding on the original material, having something cognitive to kind of like think about, but also having the visceral action. I think any combination of those two really expands a movie.
Yeah, for sure. I do feel like this was one of the original benchmarking sci-fi movies that I watched, especially as a kid. That, I mean, one, it holds up, and two, it has, like you were saying, it has so many layers to it. You can have debates about it. You can wax philosophically about this movie. There's just no ending to the amount of things that you can talk about with it.
That's not even touching like the time loops and like like weird things that happen with them.
I think travel. This movie is definitely one of the OG sci-fis that's out there that so many of our contemporary sci-fi movies we have to thank for. That kind of use this as like a model for what's good and what's bad about sci-fi filmmaking.
Originally based off of a Twilight episode.
Was it?
I believe. Yeah, there's an episode of like two. It wasn't like as far as the AI and stuff goes, but like two warriors from the future. Okay. Like in like a future war, time traveling to try and kill like the mother of a leader of the other side. Okay. Something vague like that. I've only seen some of the episode, so I can't go into like how much they gathered, but it was kind of big news a little while ago.
Interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, third movie, Blade Runner 2049.
Blade Runner.
Yeah.
This is one of those I wouldn't put in a category as necessarily better than the first. But as a sequel, it was great. Like it was like they definitely didn't drop the ball on it.
But overall, you don't feel like it was better than the original?
It's one of those things where I think the original is so like there's a certain nostalgia to it, and to that kind of world. They kind of base off of something I'm a big fan of is Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah.
So they kind of base that original world off of that that manga / anime. I think the movie came out first before they did a series of that. But I love that time period and like what do they call it, like urban futurism. There's like it's like a dystopian urban like future society you see in like Blade Runner. There's a little bit of that in The Fifth Element.
Yeah.
Where like you have all these like cool cityscapes, but they're kind of like run down at the same time with like this science fiction, this futurism, I guess. I think they did a really good job holding on to that in the sequel in 2049.
Yeah, for sure. The stark contrast of all these futuristic elements in a desolate world living together is just so fascinating in so many aspects. The idea of the co-civilization of these two things of
of
like
AI and human. It's another like AI, like how human can AI be, like truly. I think both movies hit on that.
It's like just a one of the many different philosophies and looks at how AI and humans would coexist together, with this being not a fantastic scenario where everyone turns out great. But
they're helpful buddies.
I don't have a whole lot of notes written down on this one, which is I guess coincidental, because this was definitely high on my list as like subjective movies that that where the sequel I thought was better, because I was gonna say with you mentioning that in your opinion you thought the original was better, this is one of the more polarizing movies on our list, where the sequel is quote unquote better. In a lot of the instances that we'll talk about today, is very very much objective that the sequel is better. This is more along the lines of like the sequel is quote unquote better. But there are plenty of people like you, hardcore like Blade Runner enthusiasts that grew up with the original. Like I feel like the generation in between baby boomers and millennials that I forget, they were kind of born in like the late
Gen
70s. I feel like they have this strong connection to this movie because they're the ones who grew up with it. And so they're kind of in the position to be like, oh yeah, well nothing can ever beat the original Blade Runner. And I appreciate the original and what it did for film noir and sci-fi, and a fusion of those two is very interesting. But goddamn, it is so boring.
It's slow,
Like it is slow and is boring. Like fantastic performances from Harrison Ford and what's his name? All I see him is I see him sitting on a horse from that movie where him and Michelle Pfeiffer only can get together during the eclipse. You know what I'm talking about? Lady Hawk. God, what is that actor's name? You know who I'm talking about?
The one that played the main not villain but antagonist. What is that guy's name?
Rutger Hauer.
Yeah, there we go.
If only I had a computer in front of me where I could figure it out.
Google it real quick.
No, fantastic performances from everyone, but I felt like the sequel was it was another good example of taking what made the original so great and just hitting on all those points again successfully.
I just hit myself in the face with my microphone.
Yeah, just go ahead and headbutt the microphone.
Okay.
That'll do it.
I just got so enraged at David's opinion.
Oh God, I hate that fucking guy. Yeah, I mean, that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a few things about the movie that I wasn't super happy with. Like, I thought Jared Leto's his performance was great, but his overall involvement in the movie was underutilized and kind of wasted.
Yeah.
Like,
Almost unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like that they gave a lot of those moments to the girl, the woman that was like sent to capture
right.
Gosling.
Yeah, I feel like they either needed
like
to
kind of go head to head, and when he like comes up out of the water and does the thing. I won't spoil it for if you haven't seen 2049 yet.
I mean,
you should go watch it.
Yeah, this is kind of a tough episode to get into spoiler territory because we generally have a rule on the podcast where we always go into spoilers.
Yeah.
And I should make a disclaimer before every episode that, hey, spoiler alert, but I never do because I'm like, hey, we're going to talk about this. And,
you don't think about it for those movies that came out in like the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
But then you're like, oh, yeah, that was kind of recent.
Yeah, but
maybe someone hasn't seen it.
Yeah,
but
2049 is more recent, so we should,
Yeah.
I mean, overall, I thought it was definitely a worthy successor to the original, and like I said, it just kind of expanded on all the original ideas of what made the first one better, and it was paced really well for being like a 2.5 hour movie. There wasn't a point in the movie where I felt bored or I was like, when is this gonna get going? Because I went into the movie thinking that it might be like that. But I was pleasantly surprised that it was relatively well paced, and
I did appreciate that about the new one,
and that Harrison Ford didn't phone it in because you can tell he's getting to the age now where I don't want to say phoning it in, but I mean
phoned it in.
Yeah. I mean I do feel like his involvement in episode 7. I can never remember the name of Star Wars episode 7.
A New Hope again. Force Awakens.
Force Awakens. I am a terrible fucking geek. How dare
Sorry, I forgot Jabba the Hutt and Lando Calrissian earlier.
Yeah,
so it's
I
fair.
called him a fucking lemur.
We call him brain farts.
Yeah,
a lemur. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's just so many thoughts racing through my head right now, and I just did a bump of cocaine before the show, so I'm.
I've got my shirt off right now.
Right. Yeah. We'll just use this weird opportunity to segue into the next movie, Mad Max: Fury Road.
Actually, I would like to jump into the original trilogy of Mad Max first.
Okay, go for it.
Road Warrior.
Yeah, because you have more familiarity with the original movies than I do. I've only seen the first one.
So you have Mad Max, you have the Road Warrior, and then you have Beyond Thunderdome, which Beyond Thunderdome is its own thing. It was fun, but this is one of those instances where I think the first one was a cult classic. So they gathered enough intention to make a sequel. The first one was weird, man. The first Mad Max. You saw the very first one.
Yeah, out of all the ones that came before Mad Max Fury Road, out of all those, the only one that I've seen was the very original one.
Yeah,
the first one.
It wasn't quite as what you think when you think Mad Max.
Yeah, going from the very first movie that I saw in this franchise was Fury Road. So going from that
Fury Road
and backtracking to the original, it was
a little rough.
It was a little.
There's like a scene where he's on a farm. They have like rifles. He's kind of this cop type figure from the post-apocalyptic future.
Yeah, I am. I mean, I still thoroughly enjoyed it as a movie. I still thought it was good, but it was kind of a movie culture shock type situation going from Fury Road to the original. Yeah. Just because, I mean, same director, which is kind of cool, but it's just different.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you get into Road Warrior once it's like they got a bigger budget.
Was that number 2?
Yeah. Okay. So that was the original like sequel back in the 80s. And that's where you get like, the the leather clad, slightly S&M villains on weird types of cars running through the desert, like attacking, and you get him those epic and famous car chase scenes, which were in the first, but it just stuck out so much more. The characters were just so much more vibrant.
Yeah. So in your opinion, from the original set of movies in the franchise, you think in that case the sequel was better?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I think it's largely has to do with the budget.
Yeah.
I think you had the same Mel Gibson is, as wacko as he is, he's an incredible actor.
Right.
And that's what really I think sold the phrase. It's funny because you're like, hey, Mel Gibson's kind of crazy, and then you look back at his movies, like his history of movies, where he's always playing a crazy guy.
Be like, wow.
It makes sense.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, like I wonder, like I bet he just walked onto set and he just was Mel Gibson. Like he didn't have to get into character or anything. Like he just was.
You can cry on command. Of course you can. You're crazy.
Yeah, I just have so many weird thoughts racing through my brain all the time. Yeah.
But I think that's what sold the first one. I have to give the first one respect for being a pioneer in that genre, and that was post-apocalypse. But the Road Warrior really brought it to the level where Fury Road really picks up.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they harken back to. Was the feel of Road Warrior.
Yeah, I like I said, I don't have a whole lot of notes as far as my opinions with what made Fury Road better, or not better. I mean, I guess this is kind of one of those weird exceptions in our list, is that it's kind of like it's not a reboot. It's kind of sort of a sequel. I mean, it's it's
like a little bit of both.
Yeah, it's like a different reincarnation of Mad Max, because obviously he's still the kind of around the same age as he was when the original set of movies came out.
Yeah.
But the focus has shifted. Like, yes, he's a part of the movie, but not as big a part as Furiosa is.
Yeah.
Like she's basically the main character in the movie.
Yeah, that's true.
In my opinion, her involvement in the movie, Charlize Theron just fucking nailed it in this movie.
Yeah, she kind of has more of a come to think of it, has more of a character arc that the original Mad Max had, where there's like loss, there's like an acceptance of how brutal the world is, but you can do something to change it, and then that motivation to do something.
That's a really good point.
Yeah,
that's a great point. There's
and then Max is just the stray dog that was
it's like that meme that has been floating around for a while, ever since Venom started getting trailers. It's like, what does Hollywood have against Tom Hardy's face? and you got like 4 pictures. You got like him and Venom, and he has a mask. You have him on the front of a car in Fury Road, and he's got that metal face frame or whatever it is. He's got the Bane mask from Dark Knight Rises. There's a 4th one in there, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. It might have been something. Wasn't he in like Dunkirk or something? And he was a pilot, or I think he was a pilot in some movie. I think he was. It was either Dunkirk or something else recent.
I just keep thinking Inception. But
his face was on full display.
In Inception.
I loved him in Inception. Yeah. I want him to do more movies with Chris Nolan.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, when they pair up, magic happens.
Right.
Right. But we'll transition to the next movie, and the next movie is Aliens.
Again,
I'm gonna hit you with my little mouth too. I know, you get back in there, little mouth. I'm gonna hit them. It's okay. I'm gonna get you when we's eating them.
Yeah, Aliens it's another one, in my opinion, that it's hard to argue that was better.
Right.
It was a good sequel. I think the Alien movies that kind of came out afterwards were kind of just like, weird.
Yeah.
Alien 3 was weird. But I really liked we were kind of talking about before, or maybe on the podcast. I don't remember timelines anymore. I'm just here winging it, David. Yeah. I'm just doing my thing.
No, I have no concept of time or anything that I said before this moment.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's like Terminator, where it's like a mixture of horror and action.
Yeah,
and then with the second one, they really brought the action aspects.
Yeah, we mentioned that earlier. This is another great example of the original being a different tone than the sequel, and the sequel kind of taking the original idea from the first movie and kind of transforming it and changing the tone a little bit.
Probably had a bigger budget. You have like the robot versus the queen battle, like where she puts on the mech suit and fights the queen. That is just amazing. That's so one of those things that make it awesome as an action movie. But then you'll have like the cinema heads that are like, don't even go there. That was commercial garbage. Like the first one was like a masterpiece of horror, and it really was. It really was. I think genre defining, genre bending.
Yeah.
The xenomorph. Oh man, like what an iconic monster.
Yeah.
That's so original. It's not just like, oh, here's a vampire again. Here's a werewolf again. You finally have this like, oh, that is a terrifying monster.
No, you're definitely right about that. In the history of movies, when it comes to sci-fi and when it comes to aliens, we've seen so many different incarnations of what beings from outer space would look like and could look like. And the xenomorph, like you said, just stands the test of time as being one of the more iconic depictions of alien life forms in cinema. And it just... it's just so fucking terrifying.
Yeah, and just like as far as like an original monster, I think you see like more recently you have Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Right, which I think the popularity of Stranger Things came from, of course, 80s nostalgia, which I have just tons of.
Right.
And then
why wouldn't you?
Some sort of like original but scary monster.
Yeah.
But even that, I don't think the Demogorgon was as good as that original xenomorph as far as scare factor. He's like the wannabe of a xenomorph.
Sure.
Like he's like a close, not a close, but like a mid-distant second place.
He's got a little flower for a
he's
head.
Got a flower face.
He's got a flower, and he's gonna sting you if you get too close. He's gonna open up those flaps.
I'm like, oh, that's original.
Yeah, it's almost like a Venus flytrap type of face.
And then just like a person's body.
Yeah. It was
but tall and lanky.
Yeah,
and gray.
It was
of course,
a little bit of a kind of weird take on a villain.
Yeah, and he was really scary before you knew exactly what it was,
right.
And they did that really well.
Yeah.
But like as far as like showing the monster and then being like, oh yeah, that's a scary monster. Once you show the Demogorgon, you're like, okay, now it's something to be defeated.
Yeah.
As where you show the Xenomorph and you're like, oh man, that thing is like slimy and has teeth and like acid blood and like if it gets close to me, I'm gonna like piss my pants,
right?
Because it's gonna eat my face in some horrible way, because they just did it right.
Yeah,
it's hard to. And then all they could do for the sequel is been like, aliens. It's like now there's more of them.
Yeah.
Now,
guys, we have so many more aliens.
Like the first one was scary. There was just one.
Right.
The second one. A bunch of aliens.
Who knows how many aliens we got?
We'll throw some Marines in there, Space Marines, and they can blow shit up, and that's fun. And it was fun.
And eventually we'll throw in a Predator too.
Yeah. Dude, that made so much sense to me. I don't like.
Yeah.
Speaking of aliens, the whole like the Alien Covenant, which I was kind of like meh about.
Was that? Was Alien Covenant the most recent one?
Yeah. It was kind of like a sequel to Prometheus.
Yeah. I thought it was okay. I mean, it had, dare I say, the gayest flute scene I've ever seen in a movie. Maybe really the only flute scene I've seen in a movie.
Yeah.
But
more of those untrustworthy robots.
Right. Yeah. I don't think I'll ever be able to trust Michael Fassbender in a role again. No. Be like, yeah, you stay away from flutes.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, I really don't have a whole lot more to add to Aliens. I didn't grow up with this franchise. A lot of my friends, Connor, who has been on the podcast before, he is a huge horror and sci-fi fan, and he grew up with this franchise and all the other old school horror and sci-fi franchises. So he has a lot to say about it. But unfortunately, I don't. I didn't really grow up with it, and I've seen most of the movies by now, I want to say, and I'm just like, meh. Like, you know, if they keep making more than likely, I'm gonna go see them.
And what funny enough, most of the movies we talked about, at least past couple of them, we've had Ridley Scott and James Cameron.
Yeah.
So like Ridley Scott doing the original Alien movie. James Cameron was actually the director for Aliens. So James Cameron is that sequel guy.
Yeah. That's it's an interesting change up.
I guess they were trying to sprinkle some of that Terminator magic into the Alien world.
That's probably where all that action came from.
Yeah.
Was that James Cameron was like, we need more mechanical shit blowing shit up.
Right. But he loves his sci-fi, and I got mad respect for Cameron. Yeah, for sure. For that.
All right. Well, next on the list we have Back to the Future Part 2.
Back to the Future.
Yeah. I know I'm gonna catch a lot of flack from this, but I am not a huge Back to the Future franchise fan. They're okay. I don't love the movies. I don't dislike them. I mean, it's more of a take it or leave it type of thing for me. I understand why people like them, but I do feel like this franchise falls into that subset of if you didn't grow up with them and you watch them like at a later age, like in your 20s or 30s, you're not going to get out of it what you could have gotten out of it
as a kid.
Watching it at like 9, 10, 11 years old. Because there's just so much of that flair to it that that kids like, and it just kind of it's just one of those things. And,
it was meant to make to help Rick and Morty come alive. That's what
it was, a jumping off point.
That's a jumping off point. It's a moment in history. I kind of feel the same way.
I mean, the reason why I put it on this list was when we were doing our research, this like a few of the other movies that we have on here came up in multiple listicles that I found. And I was like, well, I mean, if it's hitting more than one list out there, then I should probably include it. But the problem with that is I really don't have a whole lot to speak on it. I have seen 1, 2, and 3, and I will say that I do agree with the second one being better. I feel like it's better. I mean, simply because it actually has the hoverboard in this one.
The futuristic stuff, I think, is really what made the setting of 2, I think is really what, stuck out to me as a kid, especially.
Do you remember all those memes that were kind of like late 2014? That was like, just in case you forgot, this is how we're supposed to dress next year. And it was a screenshot of like all the people wearing like what looked like tinfoil costumes and shit.
It's the same in Bill and Ted. You see like where they're in their future. Like I think it was Bogus Journey. The sequel. Oh, that's a good one for the list. I didn't even think about that, but Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. We might come back around to that. But Bill, their whole facet of like how the future should look in the 80s was just hilarious, and I think that's what people still love that. I still love that. But, Back to the Future had a real funky vibe as far as their future world.
Yeah, well, we'll push forward so we can kind of wrap up part 1. The last couple on here are moving away from the sci-fi element and more into the horror element. Obviously, because we have The Conjuring 2. It's I think this is one of the other polarizing movies on this list, where some people might disagree with The Conjuring 2 being the better one, but just similar to Back to the Future 2, I did find it on multiple lists, and I feel like it was scarier than shit.
It was. It absolutely was.
In comparison to the first one. The first one was scary, but the second one, I mean, it had the nun And on that same note, I cannot wait for the Nun movie this fall. Have you seen the trailers for it? God, it looks so scary.
I think there's some drama going on about that too, where like there's too much of a jump scare on the YouTube ad.
Oh yeah.
So like people are like families are watching YouTube videos together, and it's like all of a sudden you have this horror movie trailer, and you're like watching something with your kid, unless you put there's certain blocks you can set that up to not play scary things.
Okay.
YouTube makes that available for you.
That's really weird that they would have a trailer for The Nun play before a video that is quote unquote family friendly.
Yeah.
Usually their algorithm is better than that.
Yeah, but I think it has to do with settings. Like the algorithm goes by whatever settings you place on there.
Okay.
I think most people know either that or have ad blockers.
Cool.
Yeah, just do an ad blocker and you're probably good. But I think they had there's some kind of drama that happened. Like this trailer was too scary for just normal YouTube. And,
Yeah.
People will find a way to complain.
Right.
You know?
Off topic. Anyways, so so yeah, we had The Nun, and I think the crazy weird limbed guy that was like I mean, you can't see how I'm moving, but it was like the
sound effects.
Jack be nimble, Jack be quick, like
yeah,
blah, blah, blah,
yeah, kind of Babadookish,
yes,
kind of Slendermanish,
yes,
yeah,
very just scary to watch.
Yeah,
I remember
I saw that in theaters. I have this one friend that he's a horror fanatic, and I'm like apparently the only one that will like go actually see horror movies with him in like theaters.
Yeah,
so we went and saw that one together, and man, I am terrible about jump scares in theaters. I'm all like crouched down in my seat with like my hands over my ears because I'm like, no, don't want the jump scare.
Yeah.
But I remember the scariest jump scare from this one, and I believe it was like there was a girl on top. She was like possessed or something on top of a shelf, like a bookshelf or like a clothes shelf.
Yeah.
And like like someone's like hearing noises, and you kind of see it from their perspective that they like look up, and she's like all crouched down on top of there and just does this like scream. Oh man. It just stuck with me.
Yeah. We also have The Evil Dead 2 on here. You can probably speak more about The Evil Dead 2.
Evil Dead, yeah. So Evil Dead is a little bit of a special case. Again, it's one of those things kind of like Mad Max that had a cult following on the first movie, the first Evil Dead, which was made on like a really low budget.
Yeah.
Actually shot here in Tennessee.
Really?
I would say in
East
Tennessee.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember seeing
in like
that.
a cabin in East Tennessee.
Yeah.
Sam Raimi, from like Spider-Man and the old Hercules show.
That's so weird how Sam Raimi, the same guy that did The Evil Dead, also did the first like movie feature Spider-Man franchise.
Right. And I think those horror guys get into fantasy and comic books a lot.
Yeah, on some
kinda
level.
Kind of like how James Wan is doing the new Aquaman.
Yeah.
But Sam Raimi had his own like brand of, it was like dark comedy. He wanted to make like a slapstick for some reason.
Yeah, and just throw in some random
like
tree rape
really,
in there.
A really gory slapstick movie.
Yeah.
And it is so weird, but I think that's what makes Evil Dead what it is. I think it's what makes it a cult classic. So what they did is, after the first one did really well, they got a big budget for the second one. And he didn't even really want to like take off like from where it was into like a new movie. He kind of just redid the first one. Yeah. Almost like the first one was just a part of Evil Dead 2, if that makes sense. Yeah. So they kind of go back. They change some things in the backstory at the beginning of Evil Dead 2, and then they just kind of leave you with where Bruce Campbell, the main character, is, Ash, trying to face this like primordial god of darkness in this like cabin, but like it keeps possessing different things. Right. And it's funny because it's a ridiculous movie, like, and the gore is ridiculous. Yeah. So there's like a part where Bruce Campbell is he's fighting with like this deer on the wall, like the evil spirit keeps possessing different things inside the house, and then he like opens something, and this just tidal wave of blood just like sprays him in the face.
Oh my god!
It's just like an obnoxious amount of blood.
That's awesome.
It's the reason why I love that series so much is, first of all, you kind of have to have a stomach for it because it's kind of gory on the next level, but it's meant to be at a ridiculous level for that whole slapstick nature
right
of it. But yeah, I think Evil Dead is definitely one of those cases where the second just had a much bigger budget, and the director was good, the same director, same main character.
That was actually another question I meant to ask, because I didn't know off the top of my head if Sam Raimi came back for the sequel.
And then Army of Darkness, I would add. Army of Darkness was probably my favorite of the whole series. Because then you have Bruce Campbell going back in time, and now all of a sudden he's in like medieval England fighting like an army of this evil thing.
And in the same since we're talking about Evil Dead, we can talk about the remake or reboot that came out. I mean, it was, I guess it's 5 or 6 years now. I think it was 2012 that it came out. But I actually, that was the first Evil Dead movie that I saw. I didn't see any of the originals first, so it was kind of like a Mad Max scenario for me, where that was the very first one that I saw, and I loved it. Like I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, they kept the extreme nature of Evil Dead, like in the gore, but they kind of took out the slapstick and made it a little more of a contemporary horror movie,
right?
Which with that subject, it did turn out really good because of that. Because it's like it is supposed to be like, it's the Necronomicon, it's like some like unearthly evil force that's attacking. So that's always good for.
Hey there, pretty boy, come over here and let me suck your cock.
Yeah,
that fucking line, like, it gets me every time. I think that pretty much does it for all our movies. Sorry, I couldn't find a good segue from getting to that until from that
our
to
science fiction, fantasy, or not fantasy, horror elements. A lot of these had horror in it.
But yeah, we'll cut it right here, and we will see you next time for part 2 of The Sequel Was Better. Thanks.
Bye.